What's up, everybody? Phillip and Krystin here again with Naptime and Nuptials.
Where it all goes down when the kids go down.
Yeah. So just back again with another episode. Actually, this is episode 1 of season 1 of the podcast. And if you didn't get a chance already, you can go back and watch our introduction video, kind of orient you a little bit to us and kind of the format and all that different type of jazz. And I mean, I think it's a pretty good watch. I mean, if I do say so myself, I was a part of making it, but you know,
I was one half of
not
it.
biased at all. I was probably 75% of it. But anyway, so yeah, I will say after you watch the introduction, this will probably make a little sense, but we have notes today. By we, I mean she has notes today. And I actually saw the notes, so we're making progress. We're batting 2 for 2 right now.
About a 24-hour head notice. I think that's pretty good. Good lead start.
It's okay. And so, what are we talking about today?
So, what better way to start this podcast season without digging deep? Today, we're going to talk a little bit about divorce.
Let's do it. Let's talk about it.
A little bit about divorce. So, there's a book about it. It's kind of all over.
What's the name of the book, just in case?
I've been seeing this going around social media, but can you divorce-proof your marriage?
Sounds like an interesting book.
Do you believe that you can divorce-proof your marriage, Phillip?
Who, me?
Mm-hmm. Is divorce-proofing your marriage really a thing? That's what we're going to talk about today.
So I'm a little bit in the middle. Honestly, like half of me, maybe more than half of me says no. Because it really just takes two people all in, you know, and I ultimately don't have the ability to influence your decisions, you know. But on the other hand, like the male head of the family, head of the household kind of piece of me says yes, because I feel like it's kind of my responsibility and it's on me, and I'm the one held accountable if something were to go left. So I'm in the middle. Well, I guess that's not really the middle, but I can see both sides, I guess. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I think I kind of have an interesting perspective about this because...
You're telling yourself that you have interest?
Yeah, I am, because I think of, like, when I hear the word divorce-proof, I think of it meaning something that you do one time and it just guarantees, you know, like when you fireproof something or when you, like a safe, you fireproof it and it's always fireproof. Yeah, when you waterproof something, you, like, treat it and then it's always waterproof.
You have a lot of waterproofing knowledge.
I have a lot of random knowledge in my head, and it's a thing. But can you do one singular thing or one singular moment in your marriage to make sure that you never get divorced? I don't think so. And honestly, I think that the concept of divorce proofing your marriage is kind of a lazy concept.
So your answer is no.
Absolutely not. Did I say anything else? Did I say otherwise?
So you don't think you can divorce with your marriage?
I don't think that divorce proofing your marriage is a thing. I think that the focus shouldn't be on making sure that you don't get divorced. Again, I think that that's kind of lazy. But I think that the focus should be that you make sure that you have a healthy marriage so that divorce no longer even is an option.
Way to make friends. You just called lazy.
It is what it is. It's like saying, okay, I'll give you an example.
Friends.
I'll give you an example. Because Phillip and I know a lot of people say, oh, we don't never say the word divorce. We never talk about divorce.
Yeah.
We've never put divorce on the table, ever.
I think that there shouldn't be topics that you don't talk about.
In your marriage.
Period. Like,
yeah, that's true.
That's just kind of opening you up for issues, in my humble opinion. Like, we should be able to talk about most things, even if it's going to hurt my feelings or it's going to hurt your feelings. Or I'm not going to say it the best way the first time or the 30th time. I still think that there shouldn't be things that are off of the table for conversation. But that's just my opinion. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
But I would never tell Phillip, like, oh, I want a divorce or, oh, I'm thinking about divorce. But I think that having a conversation about it is important. And so,
well, we have had conversations,
yes.
Like, maybe not using the D word as some people like to call it. There's so many D words, but never mind. So maybe not saying divorce, but we'll say, okay, I have said, I will be transparent in this moment. Chris and I have been talking about some things that she does that maybe I don't love. And there are things that can be changed. They aren't like, random things that can't be changed. And so, I have to be honest, like, I don't know if I can deal with that for
Forever.
50 years or 70 years or 7 years. And so, I have to be honest and say that thing really bothers me, or is very important to me, or, whatever. And I don't think that should be wrong to talk about, or like taboo, I guess, to talk about. But that's just me.
Because I know, like, and again, we always say this, but you have to really do what works for your marriage. Communicate in a way that works for your marriage.
Yeah.
And this is how we communicate. But for us, it's not opening it up as an option. It's just opening a conversation. And for us, the conversation is like the way we communicate is really important. And we have to talk stuff out. That's what we do.
I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like, if Krystin and I got a divorce, like the monetary aspect of it wouldn't work for me. I don't know. Like, if you think about those things, some people it could work for. For me, it's like 5 of them.
I'm going to take you for all you're worth.
What do you mean? I won't have a house. We have to stay in the same house.
No, that's not what it is. See, you don't even have a concept of what it is. We're going to just skip over that.
So you're not going to keep, like, doing all the other things? We just won't be married? Not like that, but like,
absolutely not. You
watching the children and cooking for the children.
Well, I'm not taking care of the children, but I'm not taking care of you anymore.
Leftovers? No?
No, I'm not taking care of you anymore. You were talking about last episode. You need somebody to take care of you.
That's not exactly what I
said.
Out. That's not exactly what I said, but
listen, this is a joke, guys.
What?
We're not talking about it.
We didn't say it was a hypothetical. Maybe we went off the rails. Okay, let's get back on the path.
Okay, so what I was saying was, I think that the concept of divorce proofing your marriage and the assumption that, okay, we're just in this for the long haul. We're not leaving, so we're going to have to just learn how to deal with it, isn't good enough. I think that there has to be more intentionality than saying, oh, we're divorce proof. Oh, we're never going to get a divorce, when clearly there are thousands, millions of couples who got married over time who, I'm sure when they got married, they didn't think that they would ever get a divorce. It was just a decline. For some people, it was a fast decline. For some people, it was a slow decline. There was a breakdown somewhere where they ended up in this place. And so I think that if you're proactive about it and you're constantly taking steps to make your marriage healthy, then you don't have to focus on divorce as even a factor. We've talked about this before. I believe that a lot of people go into marriage like thinking, I do not want to get divorced. Anything but getting a divorce.
Yeah.
And what is that? That's fear.
Yeah.
So it's
a fear-based statement.
It's a fear-based statement, a fear-based principle.
Yeah.
One that you really can't, whatever you fear, the Bible says, the thing that greatly feared has come upon me. Okay, well, but if you put it in front of you as a fear thing, if you fixate on it, like, you're always going to be thinking about it. And so I think that's just, I don't know. The concept, I've actually never read this book, y'all. I think I'm going to order it. I'm going to put a link in the description box because I like read reviews and stuff. I'm going to read this book because I don't think, personally, I'm sure that the writer did all this research and stuff. I just think that the idea of divorce proofing is faulty. I think there's some massive faults in that idea.
If it's a one and done type concept, yeah, there are definitely faults in that, because marriage is two ever evolving individuals, trying to do life together. And there's no one and done for that. Even the whole wedding, if you think about the wedding and the party or whatever is one piece of it or one and done, but the vows are literally every day. You got to wake up and say, I do every day, even when you don't want to, or even when you don't, you got to wake up and be like, okay, I do. I kind of do today. And
you bring up a good point about marriages and weddings. Because a little fact for you guys, in 2021, the average cost for a wedding in the United States was $28,000.
Hold on, wait. You said $28,000?
$28,000.
That's y'all dropping.
Some people's yearly salary.
28 racks on the wedding.
Yeah,
throw me some paper, man.
That's some people's yearly salary. And
dang,
a lot of people are engaged for a year, 2 years before they get married.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of times in our culture, because we're in a culture where,
well, I guess that ain't bad though. If you spread $30K over 12 months,
it's not as bad as doing it in 3, like we did. We got married in 3 months. We got engaged and married in 3 months.
Y'all might be on to something.
But So we just think about that. We're in a culture where everybody wants to go viral. Everything is like social media worthy. And we put so much focus on the actual wedding day. If we put even a portion of that time into preparing to be married, preparing for your marriage, I think that a lot of marriages will have a different outcome.
So maybe there's some folks here who are engaged or getting engaged or soon to be engaged or whatnot. I mean, how do you prepare for your marriage? What are your suggestions?
Okay, so I'll give you something.
If somebody asks you like, hey, okay, yeah, maybe. I mean, I've been thinking about the wedding day. I've been putting a lot of effort into that, but I really hadn't thought about nothing else. Like, what would some of your things be to say, hey, I think this is how you prepare?
Well, I'll tell you a couple things that we did. We took some really extensive marriage counseling. Won't go into details, but it was like 8 weeks long. It was really, really good, and it was really, really fruitful. I feel like it helped us a whole lot. We learned a lot about each other and our mentor couples, and we had a psychologist who was on staff who helped us out. It was legit.
Let's be honest. This might be off the rocker a little bit, but if I need to know something, let me know now. Yeah. Like, let me just go on find out. Tell me no now.
It was like
God, tell
cookies
me
on the bottom shelf,
now.
lay all the marbles on the table. We talked about everything in that counseling, like way more than I thought we were going to do, like in Christian counseling. We went all in. But I feel like that was a really good foundation.
You had a very like laid back, super low stress counseling kind of gig though.
Maybe in your perspective. From your perspective.
It was a lot of pressure, but it was still good.
I think that you just naturally take on pressure. I think you put a lot of pressure on yourself. We talk about this.
So now you guys are getting a insight into Krystin fussing at Phillip. So go ahead.
It's true. But we did premarital counseling. You asked me like, what are some things I feel like you could do? Premarital counseling was a big one. And then also we spent years.
So will you do premarital counseling? Like if people reach out?
No. I can point you in the direction of some resources, okay? But that ain't my gifting, okay?
Okay.
You gotta know yourself.
I didn't know what that was just gonna be.
But we just spent a lot of time communicating. We dated for a couple years, and we realized early on that we had totally different communication styles, and that when we have conflict, it's usually related to communication. So we spent years, and we still spend time almost every day learning how to communicate with each other, then doing the hard work of fighting through our differences and talking about everything. So I think that those are two big things that you can do to prepare for your marriage. And yes, your wedding is a beautiful day. Ours was beautiful. I look at the pictures just about every day.
I'm going to be 100% honest with y'all. I don't really remember much.
Well, so it's what it is. But
I know I stood in front of a preacher and I said some stuff. Yeah.
The foundation was really important.
And I still remember what you looked like when you walked out because I laughed hysterically. We're not going to talk about that, though.
Oh, my goodness.
But, yes, it is. It is very memorable. It's a very, for the ladies, it's a very memorable celebration.
Okay.
All right. So, I mean, I think that premarital counseling is great. I always think that it's great to have especially like I said, we're believers. And so I always think it's great to have some biblical based kind of understanding and knowledge and wisdom going into marriage, because Satan's biggest threat is marriage. Like because two people are coming into agreement and they're going to say, hey, we're going to come into agreement to change the world and bring little people into the world who are going to change the world. So why would he want that? So the engagement season is very, in my experience, what I've seen between Krystin and I, and also a few people around us, is that the engagement season can be very difficult.
It's hard, yeah.
And so it's just nice to have that balance, somebody externally looking in and saying, hey, that's kind of normal, you know what I'm saying? Like, just calm down a little bit, blase, blase. But another thing is, I mean, for me, to be transparent, I was afraid of marriage for a long time. That we'll probably talk about that at some point. But because I was afraid, I spent so much time like researching marriage and just kind of understanding and learning about marriage. So I read a lot of books, watched a lot of YouTube, all the things that you do when you're trying to understand something. And so I would kind of suggest that too, like, maybe find some books by people who have good marriages or whatever, and kind of learn some principles. Again, do not try to do this same exact stuff that these folks do. some things bless people's marriages that will break your marriage. I'm going to say it maybe every episode. But you can take the principles, and like build on the foundation of that. But you got to have a pretty solid foundation.
Yeah.
Because that engagement phase is going to wear off. Like the honeymoon phase is like, bye. It's real quick.
Yeah. And I know like people are like, oh, we're still in the honeymoon phase. And I don't really know what that means necessarily. I guess like this like bliss.
They just mean that they still like each other. You know what I'm saying? Like they ain't woke up like, ugh.
But I don't think we did.
You're still here.
Have you done that?
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
Don't be putting on for the people.
I'm not putting on. It be
Every
some
day.
time. It been not every day. Not every day.
But yeah, sometimes you do wake up and you're like,
wait, hold on, wait. So you be feeling that way? I never knew this.
we can talk about it later. It's
Okay.
that communication piece. We'll do that tonight. We're gonna talk about it. Okay, so here,
I don't
what
want
we
to
can
talk
do.
about it.
You talked about books. You read books, and
books,
again,
and then
I did not
pre-marriage
read this
counseling.
book, but I am gonna play the flip side of my own argument because I don't know whether it is truly possible to divorce-proof your marriage.
Yeah.
But if I did think that it was possible,
What would be the thing that you would do?
what would I do?
I'm asking you, what would you
And
do?
I'm gonna go to my handy dandy notes here, y'all.
Well, the notes make an appearance.
So we're going to talk about 6 ways that we think that if you could possibly divorce-proof a marriage,
Yeah.
this is how you do it.
Let's do it.
And I think that these are actionable steps that everybody can take something from. Again, you might not be able to do exactly what we did, but these are like tried and true that I think might bless you.
And so are these all 6 things that we did specifically?
Yes, well, things that we are doing.
Yeah.
Because we are
There you go.
actively
Yeah.
building a healthy marriage so that divorce is not an option for us. So these are things that we are doing, and then things that we have recently started doing, we'll talk about that. So the first thing that I have is the first thing that you can do to try to divorce-proof your marriage is studying the Word of God and praying together. And I think that this
good,
is a
your
huge one.
church.
No, I think that this is a huge one because
I
we
feel
didn't.
it.
I feel like we prayed together, but when we first got married, I don't feel like we prayed together all the time.
I'll be
We were-
honest.
Yeah.
Praying together is awkward to me.
Yeah.
And
Still, do you still think that? Because I mean,
sometimes, yeah, still.
Yeah.
And I still have to like get over it. And that's just probably a mental hump. So I think that's why we personally didn't do it as much in the beginning.
yeah,
Because we were just figuring out a lot of stuff.
I think that's normal too.
Yeah. And never mind. We're not going to talk about that. Go ahead.
You can say what you need to say.
I'm good. What's number 2?
No, we're not done talking about number.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so back to number
So,
1. I think, but
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
definitely finding scriptures that you can stand on, finding scriptures that, support the vision that God has given you for your marriage and for your union. And that is always helpful. The Bible says that the word is like it's like a fire, and like a hammer they breaketh the rock in pieces. And so, the word of God is gonna help you get through those tough times. So,
And I think it will help you like define your why as well.
Yeah.
Like when you don't have a why, like it's easy to falter, and that's with anything. Like if you don't have a why, it's easy to quit.
yeah,
Like if you don't have a why for why you started your business,
yeah.
and times get hard, it's easy to quit. Same with your marriage.
And the why, I mean, for anything, the why has to be bigger than you.
Yeah.
Like it can't be like, oh, I just want me and her to work. I mean, that might work, but that's not gonna really sustain
Or I just
you.
want somebody to take care of me.
We're back to the taking care of. That is not a direct quote.
It's not.
I mean,
No, it was a paraphrase for sure.
it's definitely a paraphrase. I said I, could help use someone helping take care of
Or
me.
you can like it.
I don't know if I always like it.
Okay.
Man, quit
Bet.
tripping. Bet.
I bet.
Good. You know what? Let's go. Let's keep moving forward, making
cool.
progress.
All right, you go. You do number 2.
Okay, so number 2, because I have notes. Number that were supplied to me, but number 2 is connecting, and so I think you really got to figure out what that looks like for you. But is it? Oh, well, we didn't talk about seasons on here yet, but I
seasons.
say I always like to share with people or encourage folks to try to see life as seasons. Because it will help sustain you, and understand that you're going to have to shift and be nimble. Like some things work in certain seasons and they don't work in other seasons. You might can get a weekly date night in season with no kids, but when you got 4, you probably can't do that.
Yeah.
We talked about the no baby. Did we talk about that yet?
We haven't
Never mind.
talked
All right.
about it yet.
But you might not, be able to do that. So you got to understand seasons. But for us, connecting really in this season looks like just being intentional with our time.
Mm-hmm.
So Krystin, I work most of the day, and then Krystin works with the kids most of the day. And so by the time we both get in the bed or the kids are in the bed, we're pretty spent. And so we just had to learn to be intentional about using that time, maybe those first 30 minutes after they're in the bed, and just talk for a little while, or just try to connect in some type of way. During the pandemic, we were like playing Phase 10
Man.
every night. I know that might sound weird to you, but don't judge us. Don't judge us. It's cool. It might not work for you. But we was playing Phase 10 or whatever, just so we would sit and talk. She be trying to play spades and stuff, but she ain't fight
You
like
can't
that.
play
for real.
spades with 2 people.
But even if you could, bruh.
I was just correcting you.
Even if you could, bruh.
But
Don't
yes.
be correcting me
Okay,
on live
so
like that.
I want to touch on date nights a little bit because date
Let's do
nights
it.
are really it's like a popular topic. Like everybody's like, you got to maintain that weekly date night. But like Phillip said, there are seasons to life. We are just coming into a season where we can even get a monthly date night. To be honest, like we're in a monthly date night.
When we say
season.
we know for sure
That
we
we're
can
gonna have a once a month
monthly
date night.
Yeah.
But for a while, like I remember trying to convince myself that we could make a weekly date night happen, and honestly, it was just stressful.
Yeah.
Like we couldn't make a weekly outside the house date night, so we tried having at home date nights. Like during the pandemic, that's what we did. A lot of times we would try to put the kids to bed early, and then we would have like dinner after they went to bed, and just like play a card game or talk or watch a movie.
They go to bed at 7:30, by the way, so it's not a super late dinner.
Listen, if your kids are like under the age of 5 and you're putting them to bed like before you go to bed at like 10:30, try out that 7:30.
Man, them kids gonna be like, bro, hold on.
It's not
Wait a
even dark
minute.
outside. That's our 5-year-old loves to tell us that
but
it's
it's
not dark
about to
outside.
be
I'm like,
winter.
but it will be.
In a minute, it's gonna be dark.
It will be
at 4
dark in
o'clock.
just a minute. Don't you worry. Close your eyes. But so weekly date nights didn't work for us. So you got to figure out how you can connect. Again, it might not even be date night at home. Like it might just be 15 minutes every single day. It might be 15 minutes in the morning together. Just figure out some way to connect because you guys have got to talk.
Yeah.
If you're stifling all those emotions, if you're holding everything in and you never talk about anything, somebody's going to explode at some point.
Yeah. You think that's how people get in those situations where they end up in a divorce or in a separation and like leaning towards divorce, and they're like, I had no idea.
Yes,
like I was
they're
blindsided.
absolutely blindsided because they have not talked about anything, and they look up and it's been months since they had an argument. Not saying that arguments are good, but you've had nothing. Like months we haven't had an argument. We haven't had a good conversation. We haven't had a check-in. Like we've had nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that is part of why people end up blindsided.
Yeah.
And they never saw it coming. Well, you're not talking about anything.
Yeah. That's possible.
Yeah. Okay. And so another one, we mentioned this. You guys are here watching this podcast.
All right. So this is the teacher part of me. Number 1, we've talked through number 1 and number 2. Number 1 is studying the word in prayer. Number 2.
Recap for us, Phillip.
Is connecting. Now we're on number 3.
And number 3, podcasts, YouTube videos, resources. Shameless plug. Books. Listen. It's like when you really love something, or it's like when you play basketball. If you want to get better at basketball, what do? You study the game.
Yeah.
If you want to get better at cooking, you practice. You study cooking. Mm-hmm. If you want your marriage to get better, you study marriage. You learn from people who have done this and who you trust and who are proven. And again, you can't do everything they do. You can take the fish and spit out the bones. Yeah. Use those principles to see what works for you. We've seen things and we're like, oh, that's dope. Let's try that. And I think that's important.
Boo, didn't work, failed. Right.
And sometimes we're like, boo, tomatoes. Like, no, absolutely not. So I think that's good. It's just a learning piece. Like, learn about your marriage.
I think one aspect that we don't always talk about, but is learning about yourself as well.
Yeah.
So like one aspect of marriage, at least for me, is learning, like having a certain self-awareness that, it makes communication a little bit easier. So if I already know something about myself, it's not as hard and I'm actively trying to figure out what's going on. It's not as hard to hear when Kristen tells me as something that I have no idea that I even do, or have even ever had anybody ever say anything about me, and then here you come saying it. So I think, especially for me, my prayer has never been that God change Kristen or do anything about Kristen. It's always been that he change me and he do his work in me, because, so this is how I think about it. And then I'm going to get off this tangent. I'm sorry. But this is how I think about it, is that God knows who you need to be with. He knows who you need to be with to be successful. So instead of trying to make her who I think I need to be with to be successful, I just need to make myself, because she is already who I need to be with to be successful, then I need to make myself available to be with her, because she's what I need. And I got to lean into what God has given me, because he would not give me something that is not going to bless me. The Bible says that.
Ooh, he's a rapper. Those bars. Should write that down.
I mean, just make it awkward then.
Okay, so that was really good. I love that. That was sweet.
Dropping knowledge gems.
That was really sweet.
This goes on in my mind.
I am so perfect for you. That's what I got out of that.
No, so perfection. Perfect. Perfection feels weird sometimes. Like we just throw that word around, but when you think about it, like, oh, she's perfect for me. Is that why this feels like this?
Okay, well, I'll tell you something personally that you guys might not know about me. Phillip talked about learning yourself and self-awareness, and really like asking God to show me like the parts of me that like are not like him, has been a huge part of my journey to like being able to communicate with Phillip. For years, if Phillip said anything to me, I was immediately offended. Something I didn't like, or if he said like, hey, like, why did you do this, or why didn't you do this?
And I'm a high feedback person.
Yes. So he needs feedback. He also likes to give feedback, but it was like every time he said it was like an immediate snap. Mm-hmm. Like, well, I didn't have time.
It was the devil.
But I had to realize that it wasn't what he said. It wasn't like that he said anything, because again, we're on the same team. He's only telling me this or giving me feedback or asking me this question. Sometimes it would be a simple question, but like immediately I would be like in a knot, offended. And I had to really go to God. Like, God, I do not want to be. And I know it was hurting his feelings. He's like, dude, I was just trying to have a conversation with you. Like, do you want that or do you not?
In my mind, I'm always like, well, in every situation that I'm in, especially like business minded or whatever, it's like, I want us to be better. So if we're going to be together and we're going to be the same as we was, it's a waste of my time, bro. Like, what's the point in us being together? We should be making each other better. So my thing is like, if I see things, I'm like, hey, have you ever considered doing it this way or something? I look at it like me trying to help you be better, and you trying to help me be better when you give me feedback. But we did have to go through, have the conversation. And it took me a few years to understand how to say it, but it eventually came out like, we're on the same team. Yeah. And I'm not saying any of this to hurt you or to be spiteful or mean or offend you. Mm-hmm. So, help me to say it better. And so I think that's how the conversation has evolved.
And I really had to figure out the root of it. Like, again, it was, for me, I know this about myself. It's something that I have to constantly fight. And I think that we all have. And,
I'm going to be honest with you. Chris don't really like nobody saying nothing to her. Nobody.
He's
so it
right.
ain't just me.
He's right. And so, again, God has been dealing with me on that. But ultimately, that's rooted in pride, okay?
Wow.
If no one can say anything to you.
Haymakers, you're not making friends today.
No, like, I am dealing.
Oh, yourself.
I constantly am dealing. I'm talking about me. Okay. Like, if I can't receive feedback from my husband, who I love, who out of anybody in this world that I know loves me and is for me, it's pride. And so,
it's the devil.
That's been a big one. I had to like figure out, like, I'm constantly having to ask God, like, show me where there's pride. Like, even when people say things to me and I don't like it, even when I think that I'm right, you can be right and not be righteous if you let pride rule your heart. And so I'm like, it really doesn't matter if I'm right. If I'm constantly walking in offense and like making myself haughty, so haughty that I can't receive what somebody's saying to me.
My.
Then it's pride.
Come on.
And pride goeth before a fall. I don't want to fall.
Come on with it.
I don't want to fall. I don't know about y'all, but I am not trying to fall.
All right. So as you guys know, I'm trying to, make sure that everybody get the points. You got to say the points a few times. All right. So we've talked about number 1, which is studying the word together in prayer. Number 2, connecting, figuring out, what are ways that you all can connect as a couple. Number 3, learning, really. So like podcasts, YouTube videos, books about not only marriage, but individually as well. And now we are on number 4, retreats and getaways. So I'm gonna let Kristen take this one because she is a getaway fanatic.
I love vacations. I love to get away, even if it's just for a night. 24 hours. It feels
She
like
would get away all the time.
it refreshes me. Like, I don't
never get
know
away.
how truly vacations can be a love language, but if they were, it would be my love language.
I thought it was food.
I really like to eat as well. I don't think that's a love language either. We're just making stuff up at this point.
So if you went on vacation and just ate.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Sounds amazing.
Hey, don't tell me twice now. Come on, don't play with it.
Okay, so yeah, I'll admit that we haven't always been as intentional as we are now about getting away together. Just like seasons, small children, all that stuff. But I do think that we're doing a better job. But I think that we could be more intentional about our retreats. I think we mentioned this last episode, but we did an actual marriage retreat. We bought a curriculum and we followed the steps through. And we still have some things in our marriage that we are still standing on based off that first marriage retreat in 2016.
Yeah.
And this podcast was birthed out of an idea that we talked about. So I think that it's really important that you find some time, even if, let's just say you don't have a babysitter. Let's just say you don't have the finances to go somewhere. You can still create your own retreat in your house where you guys sit down and are intentional about talking about your marriage and setting vision, casting vision, talking about what's working, what's not working. It's just a time to reconnect, reset. Now, if you can get away, amazing, even better.
Yeah.
Even if it's 24 hours.
So it's not just to get away. It's like the intentionality
it's the
with
mindset.
the getaway. Yeah. So having conversations, while you're there. And so a lot of people, in my opinion, I don't be wanting to go on vacation and argue. So I get it. Like, you're like, man, I don't really want to talk about that. We on vacation, so I don't, I don't want to argue about that right now. Timing is bad. You got to time. Your timing got to be good sometimes. Sometimes it's cool to argue, but sometimes it ain't. So
it's never cool to argue.
Let's be honest.
I don't like to argue.
We just talked about your communication style, though. But anyway, but I get it, but there is like a level of intentionality that is needed on some of these trips. Even if you set aside one trip a year where you say like, hey, let's just go set vision. It's the same thing that people do with companies. Like if you own a company or you got a business, like you set strategy. You do that like periodically. Why not do that for your marriage? Y'all are a company. This is a business.
Yeah.
It's not like a business transaction, but you hear what I'm saying. Like it's a business.
Yeah, it's structured.
It's a structure. It's an approach.
Members.
And we had, like we got, vision. We got people that we're trying to reach or whatever. So we got customers.
That we're trying to lead.
Yeah, it's a business. And so, why if they do that stuff out in the world, like we need to be doing that stuff in our marriage too. Like periodically setting vision for our marriage and readjusting the vision. Like, hey man, we thought that was it, but I don't think that's it no more. We've been praying about it. I ain't got no confirmation about that.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I definitely think the intentionality with the trips is definitely helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
What we do is we typically, even if we fly or drive somewhere, we spend the travel time trying to be intentional and talking. Mm-hmm. Now, Kristen likes to sleep on the travel time.
I didn't know what you were about to say there.
Oh, I mean, I'm not gonna put you out. Like, I mean, I might. I don't know. You never know. Stay on your toes. But she likes to sleep on the travel time, so it is a little difficult. It's a little frustrating. Because
I tried my best.
Oh
to
man,
stay away.
she be like, eyes be like in the back of her head.
I'm basically a baby. Like you,
pretty much.
Start
you be on there
riding
15 and don't be the 8 nothing.
Oh my goodness.
Boy,
I fell asleep on the way home today.
Sleep. I mean. It's just the soothing sounds. She be driving my kids around like, bruh, you are never awake when I'm in the car. I have no faith that you be awake when you in the car with them.
Absolutely, have to be. It's like necessity.
So you don't have to be when we be together?
No,
but anyway,
I am free at that point.
Must be nice. Must be nice to live your plush life.
So, to our next point. You want to recap? Are we good?
No, we need to recap. All right.
Okay.
So number 1 is studying the word and prayer. Number 2 is connecting. Number 3 is learning. And number 4 is retreats. Our retreats or getaways or whatever. Intentionality. Number 4 is intentionality. Number 5.
Okay, I'm going to swap our notes just a little bit.
Let's go.
Swap the order. But community. Community is so important. You got to find your tribe of people. And it doesn't have to be a lot of people. But
And not folks who slipping and sliding, ducking and hiding, and they married. Like, come on now. Let's try to find some folks who doing right.
Who are like-minded,
Yeah.
who are trying to do the same thing that you're doing. Like, who are...
I wouldn't say like-minded, because what if you trying to slip and slide, duck and hide?
Well, I don't know. I don't even know what to tell you. If you're trying to slip and slide, duck and hide, you don't.
You need to find some people who are not. You need to find some different folks who are doing things
what you're
differently.
aspiring to do, who are trying to like live and grow their marriage and seek God. You got to find it, because when times get hard, it's, yes, you always have each other, but sometimes you just need a sounding board, a safe place, somebody who understands what you're saying and knows that it's not malicious or... and somebody who can also, like, it's like one of those things, like, we always talk about, like, our parents. Like, we both are really close to our parents. We love our parents, but I can't talk to my parents about...
Not at all.
My marriage.
And
first of all,
dangerous.
I'm not supposed to.
Danger.
That's not biblical. We are supposed to leave and cleave. And secondly, like, my parents are pretty much going to take my side. Like, they're going to... Like, they love Phillip, but at the end of the day, like, they're riding for me. And so I can just be in a moment of passion, like, upset and saying something about Phillip. My mom is never forget
That's the thing. Yeah, like you going to forget and
my
keep
dad
on
for
pushing.
sure. My dad is never going to forget what I said.
If you tell me something, I'm pretty much going to remember. I mean, so even if I forgive you, I know my mama mad.
Yeah.
And she be, throwing, and she kind of petty a little bit too.
Stop that. She's amazing.
She nice.
But
until
so
she
parents
ain't. Until
are
she
going to
ain't.
be a no. And that's why it's so important. Children.
And I think the difference
huge
is...
no. Huge no. You can't tell them.
Yeah, I just assume that. But another thing is, like, I don't know how to be a wife. So I could never help Krystin be a wife. I mean, I can do my best, but I can't, I can't help any of you be wives if you're a wife. So, and so I think it's always nice to have that perspective, like Krystin having a perspective of a wife and me having a perspective of husbands, because like I can tell them stuff and they're like, and that they understand that when I say it to Krystin, she's like, well, that sounds stupid. Well, of course it sounds stupid because she is not a husband. So
yeah, that's good. So yeah, it's really important to find community, and there's a lot of ways to do it. But yeah, just really like be intentional. We actually prayed about it for years. We were like, God, we want a community of people who we can go to, like, and feel safe to talk about our marriage and like be a sounding board and stuff. And he blessed us with that in a number of ways. And so I'm really grateful. So I can say it from experience that it is worth it. And it is something that has blessed our marriage.
Yeah. Do you want to recap this time or just me?
You can do it. It's your thing.
All right. I just want people to retain the content. All right. So number 1, we're coming on the last one. It's number 6. So number 1, studying the word together and praying. Number 2, connecting. Number 3, learning. Number 4, intentionality. Number 5, community, and bringing up the rear. Not that it's, save the best for last.
Yeah. Okay. So counseling.
Number 6.
We're going to talk about counseling.
Counseling.
Just briefly. Phil, what are your thoughts on counseling? So I'll be transparent. We did really extensive premarital counseling. We talked about that. But we always said, and it was with a licensed therapist as well. So we had multiple sessions, and then we had a couple one-on-one sessions with a therapist who was amazing, who's in Birmingham. So if I go back, I know where I'm going. But we haven't gone since. And we always said, like, oh, maybe we should do a yearly checkup. When we first got married, we're like, we're going to do a yearly checkup. Yeah. And we haven't done one.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Because I think that counseling is a really, really healthy tool for marriages. Those that are struggling, those that aren't.
At least for us, I just don't think we've ever prioritized it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. That is what it is.
Yeah. But I think
it can definitely be helpful. You want to make sure that like that your therapist or your therapy
Is aligned with their
aligns
values.
to
Yeah,
your
for sure.
values,
For sure.
because I don't want people telling me something that is clearly, the entire opposite way of how I try to live my life. And within reason, I want people to challenge me. But I think that's the only piece that gets a little squirrely for me personally,
Yeah.
over in the therapy space or the counseling space. And so that's my only opinion. But you can even, within reason, have counseling like services through pastors
Yeah.
or churches or whatnot. But I do think it's helpful, and I do think that it should be counseling should be like a proactive tool and not
Yeah.
like not only a reactive measure. I think how we've seen it, especially before COVID, it was always like more when I saw it, it was always reactive. Like something went wrong in my life or in my marriage, and now I'm talking to somebody about it because of it, instead of like, hey, let me just start talking to somebody even though things are pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I think that I don't know. Again, like he said, I don't think we prioritized it, but I do think that we still pull from those conversations that we had with our therapist.
Yeah.
And we learned a whole lot about each other.
Yeah.
Because
I learned that Kristen so we took like a stress test kind of situation.
it's like an assessment. Yeah.
Yeah. And the therapist was like, I've never seen anybody who doesn't have any stress in life whatsoever.
It's pretty low stress.
This is the plush life.
Well, I think that, again, personalities, like, I am just for the most part, I'm a pretty laid back person, just in general. And sometimes that's great, and sometimes it's not good. I accept that it has its pros and cons. Do you think that I'm pretty laid back in most ways?
I wouldn't put you in that bucket exactly, but yeah. Cool.
How would you describe me?
Unique, peculiar.
My temperament, I guess.
Unique, peculiar.
But on the flip side, Phillip was like stressing about getting married, and I just could not understand it. And so that assessment, those
differences between men and women,
it allowed us to really like talk about it. So
maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me. But for me, when I was talking about getting married, when I thought about getting married, I didn't think about the wedding. I mean, yeah, cool, party. I didn't think about that. I was thinking about like, cool, I got to take care of somebody else. Like, I got to take care of myself. Like, if something go wrong, I got to take care of that. And I got to I got to take care of the wedding stuff. And then I got to take care of the honeymoon stuff. And then like, man, if the car break, I got to take care of that. And then like, we got kids, so I got to make sure to take care of that. Can't just do crazy stuff like quit my job or just move to Alaska. I gotta do all kinds. You know what I'm saying? So I was thinking through all of that stuff, and Kristen's just like, "Oh my goodness, this is gonna be the best party ever." Bro, I don't want to talk about that, but go ahead.
And I think too that the amount of time in which we planned was probably a stressor for you. It was pretty fast.
It was a little quick.
It was just like a whirlwind.
It works.
But I do think that those therapy sessions help ground us and help us communicate. So
cool.
I think that we're really big advocates for counseling, but we haven't really walked the walk.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah.
Transparency,
We're being honest. We're gonna be honest.
Yeah.
The better truth. Inside joke. But yeah, so hopefully you guys, took away those 6 things that you can do to
divorce-proof your marriage.
Divorce-proof your marriage,
if
maybe.
That's even a thing.
If it's a thing.
But what I would like to leave you guys with, we're going to try to leave you guys with a question for you to take back to your own marriage.
I didn't recap the 6, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, babe.
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right. So we're going to recap all 6 now because we finished them. Number 1, studying the word and prayer. Number 2 is connecting. Number 3 is learning. Number 4 is intentionality. Number 5 is community. And number 6 is counseling. All right, you can do
That's so good. Okay, so every week we're going to try to leave you guys with an actionable step or something that you guys can talk about together.
It's going to be called the question of the week.
And the question of the week this week is, if divorce proofing is a thing, what are some actionable steps that we can take to divorce proof our own marriage in our own way?
Yeah, like what are some divorce steps that you can take to divorce proof your marriage?
You can take
in your own way.
Yeah.
Or is it even a thing? Why don't you ask each other?
Yes, I think that's
Have you guys ever said divorce? Have you ever thought about maybe I can't do this forever?
You should definitely talk about that. That's an important question. Can you imagine
Now look,
sitting
I don't
down
want to
and
be out here breaking folks up. Though.
no, absolutely not. I don't
Yeah,
think that.
but
I think
just
that the conversation is important. But
you
can
on the
you
same
imagine?
team,
Yeah,
working it out.
I think that it's important because, like, can you imagine talking to your spouse and thinking that their answer is one thing and that's another?
Yeah,
But you would have never known if you never asked the question. So I
that's
think
true.
the question's important.
It's safer to ask. That's
Yeah.
true. All right, guys. Well, we don't want to keep you too long. We understand that it's probably nap time and you would probably want a little time to yourself.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for the time. We are excited for another episode next week. If you like the content or if you didn't, hit the like button, subscribe button down in the down there. And also leave a comment. And if you want to reach us, you can reach us at our email. It's in the description box, or you can always sign up for our email list over at our website, naptimeandnuptials.com. That's in the description box as well. And we'll be sending out email blasts whenever a new content drops. So, we are excited about this, excited for
so excited.
season 1, episode 1, and the rest of the episodes. We got a lot of good content coming for you. But as always, if you guys have ideas or have thoughts or feedback, please leave them in the comments or send us a direct message or something, all that, all the social media type things. You got anything else you want to say, Mom?
I don't. Love you guys.
Cool. Love you guys.
All right.
We out. Oh, wait, I did it wrong.